if you put yourself in a coherent energetic environment, you'll then synchronize with coherency. Take, some of the technology that we're seeing around the world today with new towers being rolled out and what our iPhones work on. That's a distorted form of energy. That's not compatible with the body. You'll see distorted frequencies leading to disease.
Wherever you guys are watching this show, I would truly appreciate it if you follow or subscribe. It helps a lot with the algorithm. It helps us get bigger and better guests, and it helps us grow the team. Truly means a lot. Thank you guys for supporting, and here's the episode. All right, guys, from Miami, we got Jason Shurka here today. My man, what did you bring into the studio today?
What does it look like to you?
It looks like a space object of some sort.
It's called the Energy Enhancement System. It's been doing incredible things all around the world. And every time somebody sees something like this, they're like, what's going on? But the results that we've been seeing around the world with testimonials being shared, it's really a technology that helps the body rebalance itself. So it's been doing incredible stuff.
Wow. So is it on right now?
It's on right now. It's on all the time, so long as you have it plugged in.
Really?
You're talking about a scalar field, which is creating a toroidal field of energy, coupled with what we call biophotonic light. Think about color therapy, light therapy, only using the movement of light in a specific way, coupled with certain frequencies, wavelengths, and in this case, colors, to be able to help the body rebalance itself. But if I had to explain it in like a few seconds, I always go back to the law of synchronization with your environment. So I'll ask you a question. You'll probably be able to connect to this one. Take women, for example. Do you know what happens when women spend enough time together?
Oh, their periods sync.
Their periods sync. There's a synchronization. Now, it's obvious that the menstrual cycle, it's not contagious, right? It's not one woman giving it to another. They're synchronizing with the environment that they're in, so they have a synchronized expression. That's the law of synchronization with your environment. Now, it doesn't happen 100% of the time because you have emotional components and birth control and toxins and pollution, all those things that may change that, things like stress and anxiety and so on and so forth. But for the most part, you see that as this common major theme across the board. So what that really means is if you put yourself in a coherent energetic environment, you'll then synchronize with coherency. If you put yourself in a distorted energetic environment, take some of the technology that we're seeing around the world today with new towers being rolled out and what our iPhones work on, that's a distorted form of energy. That's not compatible with the body. So you'll see distorted frequencies leading to disease. All that you're seeing over here, and I'm simplifying it, of course, but it's creating a coherent field of energy so your body can do what it does best, which is heal itself.
Wow. So all these 5G towers, these Wi-Fi waves, they're actually harming the body like that?
Well, 5G, scientifically speaking, with millimeter waves, works at a certain spectrum of frequencies. Take 60 gigahertz, for example. That frequency is in alignment with oxygen deprivation.
Wow.
What happened over the past 4 years? People couldn't breathe. There was a problem going on around the world. It's not because objectively fifth generational technology is bad. It's because that spectrum of frequency is not compatible with the human body. And when you start moving with energy in a way that's not compatible with the laws of creation, you start seeing things that distort creation. So that leads to disease as opposed to health.
And disease is at an all-time high right now.
Big time, because again, you have a distorted field of energy. Think of the word dis-ease for a second. It's a dis-ease of energy, a dis-ease of light, a dis-ease of flow, a dis-ease of electricity. One of the main things that this system is doing is increasing the millivoltage within your cells. So the difference between health and disease is how much electricity do you hold in your cells, because we're electrical beings. If you have deficient electricity in your body's not going to be able to work well. Things can't move. That's called dis-ease. When you have sufficient electricity in your cells, everything can work the right way. It's almost like your iPhone on 1% battery, it starts lagging, or your iPhone on 100%. It can move extremely fast.
Wow.
Your body's no different because it needs electricity and light to be able to flow the right way.
Fascinating. This thing's going at 1,000,000 miles per hour right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, technically it's going on the scalar side of the equation faster than the speed of light.
Wow.
But when I say that, you have modern day physicists, they get pissed off because they're like, nothing's faster than the speed of light. And my answer to that will be, what about quantum entanglement? There is no distance or time and space that matters with quantum entanglement. So I'll give you an example. Let's take you. If I were to bring some sort of foreign agent that can get you sick Do you know the cells in your body that would activate first to fight that?
White blood cells?
White blood cells. That's your first line of defense when dealing with any form of thing that's coming to attack you. Well, if I take your white blood cells and I put them into a petri dish, just a few of them, and I reintroduce that thing to your body, do you know what would happen in the petri dish?
In the petri dish? No.
They would activate.
Huh.
Even though they're outside of your body, they would activate. Now that is called entanglement. And that's not a big deal because I'm 3 feet away from you. The speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. It's about 7 times around the planet every single second. What that means is if I'm standing 186,000 miles away from you and I turn a light bulb on, it should take you 1 second to see because it takes that long for light to reach 186,000 miles away. 1 light year is 186,000 miles per second multiplied by the amount of seconds per year. It's about 5.6 trillion miles away. So if you see a star 1 light year away and it explodes, you actually saw that star do what it did 1 year ago. When you look into the night sky, you're looking into the past.
Right.
Because the distance is what we call time. It's a measurement of the movement of light relative to where you are. So how does that connect to you with the white blood cells? Well, if I take that same petri dish and put it 1 light year away, science would tell us, modern day science would tell us, what's accepted in the narrative would tell us, that when I introduce that foreign agent to your body, it should take 1 year for that petri dish to activate as well. But that's not what happens. It happens instantaneously.
Wow.
There is no lag whatsoever. There is something faster than the speed of light. Perhaps it's so fast it's not traveling at all. It's just everywhere all the time simultaneously.
Wow.
When people use the word quantum, that's what it means. It means we have no idea what the hell's going on. It's everywhere all the time. And there's no way to be able to quantify something like that because it is everywhere all the time. That's part of how this technology works. It works on the quantum or scalar field while also working on the physical field, taking care of yourself on the spiritual or non-physical level, while also rebalancing the field with light within the spectrum, that's what the screens do, to your body to rebalance the physical vessel.
Fascinating. So it's almost multidimensional then.
Everything's multidimensional. It depends on what aspect you're looking at it from. But this is consciously activating things on multiple dimensions, correct?
Wow, that is fascinating. And what drove you down this path to even come up with something like this?
I did not come up with this. This has been around since 1996. I was introduced to it about 2 years ago. And to be honest with you, I was extremely skeptical. I looked at this thing coming from where I come from, which is a real estate background. My first question was, who's trying to mess with me and what's the scam? Because I just saw computers with lights and movement and I didn't understand anything. What got me was my aunt had a 13.5 centimeter cystic fibroid in her uterus. In 4 hours, she was back to herself in a system like this.
Wow.
But that still wasn't enough for me because I looked and I said, okay, you know, placebo, power of thought. How do I know that there's an objective power to what's going on here? Within 24 hours, my sister's dog developed a 4 centimeter tumor in his neck. We sent him to a system. In 3 days, it was gone. Then I kind of surrendered because it's a dog. I can't argue placebo. I can't argue the power of thought because I didn't take him in there and say, hey, we're bringing you into the EE system and this is what's going to happen. There was an objective power that I started seeing. So that caused me to ask more questions, understand what was going on. It's been a long journey. But ultimately, beyond me explaining to you how it works, I would look at what people are actually experiencing because that's the reason why this is so far and wide around the world right now. In less than 2 years, we've opened 400 centers around the world in 52 countries. And it's not just because I explained how this works. It's because people shared their stories. And we're seeing people with crazy stuff across the board with their own testimonials of what they're explaining and what they're sharing. And I think that's what really moved the dial and got people to embrace this in a whole new way.
Right. You don't need to do any marketing. It speaks for itself.
It speaks for itself.
And you're out here changing lives with this stuff.
It's been awesome. It's been
great.
awesome. And thank God it's been bringing people to a beautiful place, all ages, all everything. And it's just it's the most fulfilling job I could have asked for because coming from real estate, you can only buy and sell a building so much. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, it's great that there's money there, but what are you actually doing to change the world?
Right.
And when the EE system came into my life and allowed things to flourish in a different way, that's where I built the network called the Unified Healing Network, which was basically taking all these people that wanted to open centers and create a centralized umbrella so we all work together to bring this to the world. And that's exactly what's been happening.
Love it, man. Are there any of these in Vegas?
Oh yeah,
I'm
there are
gonna
a few
start
of these
going.
in Vegas. You can find them on unifiedhealing.com. It's spelled UNIFYD healing.com. And if anybody does want to learn more about this, see research about it, because there's tons of it and there's tons more coming, eesystem.com is where people can learn about this as well. Whether somebody wants to open a center, bring this for their own private purposes in their home, everything's on the table. The goal right now is, how do we bring this to the masses at large? How do we keep it affordable? How do we make it accessible? And most importantly, how can we use this for humanitarian aid purposes? And that's part of what we're now aiming to do all around the world. We've done some work in India. We want to do work in our own backyard here in the United States and a few other countries around the world as well.
I love that, man. And how often are you using this? Is this like a daily practice?
I have this in my office. I sit in front of it every day. If I'm traveling at this point, everywhere I go, there's a center. And generally, if I'm going somewhere, it's because I have to go visit that center to do some form of an event. So I would say 75, 80% of my days, I'm around one of these systems.
Wow.
For real, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
And really, like, a lot of people, they're like, Jason, how do you have the energy to do what you do? I don't have an answer, because it's like non-humane in terms of how much traveling and how much movement and how much speaking and how many people. And I would allocate a lot of that to this. It's a lot to be credited for in terms of why I've been able to do what I'm doing. Because when I first started with this, I was depleted. And when I first experienced this, I went to a big system. It was a 32-unit system, which is massive, much, much bigger than this thing, at my friend's private home in Miami, Florida. And I woke up like Superman the next day. And that's when I'm like, okay, now I'm feeling it myself as well. We got to bring this to everybody.
That is fascinating. Does this help on the spiritual side, like third eye awakenings, thing like that?
So the short answer is yes, but I want to explain that so people can learn to think for themselves instead of just trusting what I say. There really is no difference between the physical and the non-physical. It's on the same spectrum of energy. It's just a different expression of the same spectrum. So what you call spiritual is still connected to the physical, only a different expression of that very thing. So Nikola Tesla, he said, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, and you will understand the secrets of the universe. If we stop thinking in terms of physical phenomena, and we start thinking in terms of, forget spiritual, energetic phenomena, things that you can even measure, understanding color from the level of energy, understanding sound from the level of energy, well, then disease and health is not something physical. It's actually an energetic thing. And it's balance or imbalance of energy, frequency, and vibration in the body. So this rebalances energy, frequency, and vibration in the body, both on the physical level and non-physical level. We're seeing people with depression, anxiety come out of it overnight. I'm not even exaggerating. There are people that came in for something having to do with their knee. And they're like, I was depressed and it went away. The knee took a little bit longer, but I went in for one thing and I experienced something completely different.
Wow.
And in many cases, we're seeing the emotional state is rebalancing, which is really the most important. Because any disease that you see in the physical world, in your physical body, it first started as some sort of energy that stopped moving the right way. It's a frozen emotion. It's a frozen electromagnetic field. And when you start getting that to move again, it can't turn into a physical dis-ease.
Wow.
Every physical disease starts as something energetic, spiritual, or emotional.
So mental health is tied to physical health then?
Mental health is the most important thing beyond what happens to you physically, because it's the root of your physical health.
And do you think people are manifesting their own physical ailments sometimes?
Through your emotions, of course. So there's a book called The Emotion Code. Dr. Bradley Nelson wrote it. And he explains through a scientific process of what he's bringing you through, and through his clinical studies and trials of what he's gone through himself. Years and years and years of doing something like this, showing certain patterns between certain emotions that always manifest into certain diseases. So take cancer, for example. If you think of disease, forget about cancer. If you think about disease as disease without identifying it with a terminology, have you ever heard of Kirlian photography?
No.
Kirlian photography is a type of technology where I can take a picture of you and see the light of your being. I see your electromagnetic field through light. So we're all radiating light. Some light you can see, some light you can't. But if I take a picture of an individual and that individual has breast cancer and has a breast tumor, for example, you're going to see light, 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 light. And right around here, you're going to see no light. That's what disease is. So it's about no electricity being able to flow through that part. Now, the reason why I'm re-explaining that is because it started with an emotion that was stuck. So each emotion holds a specific frequency: sadness, joy, happiness, whatever it is. Each frequency is almost like taking a magnet. A magnet has an electromagnetic field. If I take a magnet and put it against this screen, I will distort the screen. Now, if I leave it there for 10 seconds, it's not a big deal. I could pull it away, the screen will restore itself. If I leave it there for a week and pull it away, that part of the screen will be dead. Your body is the same thing. The magnet is the emotion, the electromagnetic field. As you have an emotion like fear or anxiety or sadness or grief that you don't process, it's the equivalent of taking that electromagnetic field that's distorted and keeping it in a certain part of your body.
Wow.
And when you don't move that, what happened to the screen happens in your body. It distorts that over a period of time where it creates a problem where light can no longer flow. That's why through Kirlian photography, when you're taking an individual and taking a picture of them, you can see sickness in their body based on where there's a deficiency of light. The reason why the EE system is working so well for millions around the world is because it's increasing the electricity and light that can flow in your body. And when you increase that, you change your emotional state, which changes your physical expression.
That is so fascinating. I need to take a Kirlian photo of my body.
It's very cool.
See where I'm at.
It's very
I wonder
cool.
what places offer that, because you won't find that at a doctor's office.
No. You'll probably find some doctors saying that it's quackery.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, those same doctors are probably using light as a form of medicine in a way that they don't even understand. Because the difference between Eastern and Western medicine is terminology. And that terminology has led to a different awareness. So Western medicine is reductionistic. So it takes the whole and separates it into separate pieces. And Eastern medicine is holistic. So it takes all the pieces and it looks at it as a whole. Each side is important, but we've lost proportion. It's important to understand the pieces of the body. If you forget that it's interconnected, you end up creating a pill like Accutane that's good for your acne but destroys your liver.
Took it for 7 months.
It does a lot of things to the body that will help a piece of the body but hurt at the expense of another piece because it's reductionistic. So when you're looking at technology like this, it's a paradigm shift in technology because most of us were taught to think of technology as maybe it's not the greatest thing because we're seeing it used in negative ways. Well, it's only being used in negative ways because the individuals behind, the inventors behind those technologies are not aware of the laws of creation. Everything that you're seeing over here is based on the laws of creation. So it's using technology in a productive way. And that's why what you're seeing here with the testimonials, it's not a miracle. I used to think it was a miracle. It's not a miracle. The body can do incredible things and technology can be an incredible tool at your fingertips so long as the technology was developed based on the fundamental laws and not based off of a disconnected awareness that most people hold today around the world.
Wow. Yeah, my fingers still go numb sometimes from the Accutane. I was on this was in college, so it was a while ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know, I took a blood test and I had some liver issues and I don't drink or anything. So that's probably from that.
Absolutely.
That's pretty crazy.
Side effects are an effect, a consequence of a reductionistic point of view. When you have 1,000 side effects to a medication, it's because that medication is solving one piece of something at the expense of everything else because your body has so many components. Over here, we're not talking side effects. You're talking about detoxing. So when you have garbage in the body, you're going to need to get rid of that garbage from your body. On its way out, you may experience some of the same things that you experienced when they went in. That's how fasting works. That's how detoxing works. And it's not just a physical thing. It's an emotional thing as well. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say that this is helping rebalance you in a way that allows you to release a frozen emotion like anger that you had from the age of 8 because of a specific experience that was traumatic when you were 8 years old with your father, whatever it was. Well, that experience, that energy, that emotion that you felt now needs to leave. On its way out, you may experience anger again because it's detoxing out of your system. So I don't call those side effects because it's a holistic way of seeing things. It's treating the whole instead of treating a piece. But that's the furthest you would ever see with something like this, which is a good thing, not a negative thing.
Right.
It's allowing the body to get rid of what's in the body that it needs to detox on both emotional and physical levels as well.
This is so interesting. I never realized how important emotions played a role in all this because a lot of people store their emotions in their body.
And when you don't process that emotion, you have a problem because now you have a distorted field that's stuck. And if you can't process that emotion, it will turn into a physical disease. That's how you manifest physical diseases in your body.
Dang, yeah, because I was a really shy kid growing up, and I really didn't express my emotions. So
What
I'm wondering.
changed?
No, I'm still pretty shy. I'm still pretty introverted, but I don't know. It wasn't really like a specific moment that changed, but
You don't seem shy.
I am. I could toggle it,
Got
you
it.
know. But I definitely listen more than I speak.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
But I think I saw with my dad, man, he had a lot of health issues, and he had some deep trauma that he never really addressed or talked about.
Well, you are a combination of your ancestors, genetically speaking. Your genetics holds memory in it. That memory is passed down from your mother, from your father, from their mothers and fathers, from the lineage above them and the ancestors behind them, and so on and so forth. A lot of what we experience in our lives today are not ours. They belong to our lineage that we are now holding in our genetic field, in our genetic memory. To rebalance that on the genetic level and help bring your body back to its, what I would call like your original divine matrix on the level of your genes, will help you get rid of things that are not yours. So take shyness, for example. Your shyness may not be yours. It may be something that comes from somewhere else that you believe is yours because that's the expression. Most of what we deal with in our lives today are not ours. They belong to a past. You're not a victim to it. There's a lesson to learn from them. But ultimately, it's easier to get rid of something that's not a part of you to begin with. We're a combination of those ancestors rebalancing that matrix in a beautiful way, not a matrix in a negative way, but rebalancing that genetic field, rebalancing your makeup of who you truly are and why you came here will help you overcome a lot of issues a whole lot quicker.
Wow.
And again, I credit that to when we see people walk away with incredible results, it's not because of some miracle. It's because you're using the fundamental laws of creation and you're applying them in a way to help the body do what it does best, which is heal itself. That's ultimately how this works.
Yeah.
This is not healing you. You heal you. This is helping you do what you already do.
I could see that because I did hypnosis therapy, and I was remembering generational trauma from before I was even born.
Yeah.
When he put me under hypnosis. So I could see that trauma being inherited for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And now there's even past lives. I don't know what your take on that is, but past life trauma.
Well, if you want to go down that route, we can have some fun. We spoke about the speed of light, so let's go there for a second.
Yeah.
Past lives implies that it happened before. I'm sure you've heard this idea that time is an illusion, right?
Right.
Okay, let's explain that for a second. Why is time an illusion? Why doesn't time exist? Well, if 1 light year away is a distance and not a time, it's a measurement of the distance of light over a period of what we would call a year in our experience of a year. Well, that means that the closest star, with the exception of the sun, to Earth is 4 light years away. Tonight, if we go and look at the night sky and we see that star explode, if it's 4 light years away, how long ago did it explode?
4 years.
4 years ago. So now let's take it a step further. If you're standing on that star and you take a telescope and look at Earth, what year is it?
4 years, right?
2020.
Right.
It's pretty crazy. That means that the experience of what we call the past is not behind you, it's just further away from you based on what you call the speed of light.
Wow.
So when you understand the illusion of time in a different way, let's say you had a life in ancient Egypt 3,000 years ago, that light of that experience is 3,000 light years from where we are right now.
Wow. Yeah.
And if you can go look there, you will see that happening in the present moment. My point is, there is no such thing as a past life. It's a parallel life. That's past relative to your present. It's all relative. That's what Einstein proved. Time is relative. It's not absolute.
Right.
Because it's relative to you based on where the experience of that light is. I'll give you one more example. Take 9/11, September 11th, 2001. It happened roughly 23 years ago. If I took you and put you 23 light years away from Earth right now, and we took a big telescope, and you looked at where the Twin Towers are, you would see what happened on 9/11 all over again. Because that's where that experience is. But there's something that we're not accounting for. You wouldn't be able to hear the experience. And the reason why is because the speed of sound is 767 miles per hour, whereas the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second.
Are you interested in coming on the Digital Social Hour podcast as a guest? Well, click the application link below in the description of this video. We are always looking for cool stories, cool entrepreneurs to talk to about business and life. Click the application link below, and here's the episode, guys.
The perfect in real-time example of that is when you see lightning. What do you see first? The lightning or the thunder?
The lightning.
Because the light travels a whole lot faster than the sound.
Right.
That's why you hear the sound after you see the bolt.
That makes sense.
It's the difference between the light of the experience and the sound of the experience. The point over here is all that you call a past exists in a present moment. It's just further away from you. And that past is traveling at 186,000 miles per second. If you go to somebody like Robert Edward Grant, he'll take it a step further and tell you that it's not the speed of light, it's the speed of perception. It's how fast you can process reality, which is the limitations of what you call reality. As we change the speed of our perception, our experience of time will change as well.
Wow.
But that's a whole different ballgame.
This is crazy, man. I love it, though. I love that. There's this theory online right now that your soul chooses your life that you're in right now. Are you a believer in that?
I break it up to something called divine will and free will. Free will is who you are right here, right now. Divine will is a higher choice, choosing certain circumstance and lessons that you have to be able to experience, ultimately for your growth. Now, when you're driving and you're learning how to drive in driver's ed, you're driving, and then you have the teacher next to you with the steering wheel and the brakes. And just in case you make the wrong turn, that man or woman, whoever your teacher is, will stop you from going off track, correct?
Right.
When you come into this body, and this is my perspective of how I've come to understand it on my own personal level. So take it or leave it, take it with a grain of salt. But it's helped me a lot in my life deal with certain things that have happened to me, understanding that it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. So when we come into this life, into this reincarnation, we're driving that car. There's two versions of you. There's you in the free will seat, and there's you in the divine will seat. The divine will version of you, the higher version of you, knows your purpose, it knows your path, it knows your destiny. It's the knowingness of your soul. But when you come in to experience free will, if you knew everything that divine will knew, there's no point of being a human. You already know it all. There's no lesson to learn in the school, just like I wouldn't need to teach you how to drive if you know how to drive. I wouldn't be the teacher next to you. But because we come into this free will experience, free will forgets that divine will is sitting next to them. Almost like during you had that partition. Only the partition is black. You can't see that there's somebody next to you.
Right.
Divine will knows what's going on. Free will is playing a game of hot and cold. Now, as you're driving throughout free will, you decide to make a left, but really your path is straight. When you make a left, there could be a tree or a spike or whatever it is that can kill you if you keep going in that direction. So divine will does something. It saves you. It jerks you back onto the road in order to save your life. But because free will forgot about divine will, free will says, ow, why did my head hit the window? Because something was trying to save you, and it was telling you you're going off track without telling you exactly what that track looks like. Life works exactly like that. There's a higher purpose that we've chosen to go on. But we're also human beings that need to experience that game of hot and cold to have an authentic experience of free will. We always have something here to guide us. We just need to know how to speak that language. What I explained as your head hitting the window could be translated in the real world of cancer, of your shoulder dislocating, of a staph infection in your left leg. My shoulder dislocated, and I got a staph infection in my left leg. It almost killed me. Within 24 hours, I would have been dead if I didn't take action on that. Over a period of these series of injuries, over a period of 4 years, that was the realization that I had. I went from, why is this happening to me, to wait a second, there's something bigger here. If quantum entanglement shows us that everything is connected and everything is one, then oneness would never do anything to hurt itself.
Right.
So if oneness would never do anything to hurt itself, how is it that the shoulder dislocations and the staph infection that almost killed me is something there to help me? And that's where the realization of divine will and free will came in. Ultimately, I do believe that you choose what you want to experience in this life, and the hardest circumstances are actually your greatest blessings.
Wow.
because you can choose them to bring out the greatest opportunities. The people that have experienced sexual abuse when they were younger,
Yeah.
maybe their purpose was to save millions of children from child sex trafficking.
Mm.
And it was their abuser that inspired them to make them go and take that action. It was because of that trauma that they choose to transmute that energy and turn it into something a whole lot more positive.
Love that.
So I only see it in a positive light. It doesn't mean that it's fun the whole way.
Yeah.
But ultimately, everything that happens to us is happening for us, so long as we choose to see the lesson.
Love that mindset because so many people have that victim mentality, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of toxic. I had it growing up. I think my
We all
parents
did.
had it.
We all
Everyone. Yeah. It's tough getting out of it.
Yep,
But near-death experience will do it, right?
absolutely.
Man, what a story. There's a couple of people you interviewed that I'd love to hear what you took away from.
Sure.
Stephen Greer. That dude's a legend.
Legend.
What do you take away from that one?
He actually taught me something that made a lot of sense that I never had an answer for. On the topic of scalar technology and how you can weaponize scalar energy. Have you ever heard of this connection between extraterrestrial life showing up over nuclear missile bases and shutting them down?
No, I haven't.
There's a very big connection, massive army officials and heads of nuclear missile bases around the world came and shared the same stories over the past 70 years. Anywhere from Russia, anywhere around Europe to the US, and everywhere in between. So I always wondered, I'm like, why would they care? Let's assume that there's extraterrestrial life here and they're doing what they're doing. Why would they care about nuclear war? And Dr. Stephen Greer taught me something in our interview together that really changed the game. And it makes sense. The scalar world, when you're talking about scalar energy, you're operating on the other side of reality, meaning in the quantum field,
Right.
faster than the speed of light, everywhere, all the time, simultaneously. So in the scalar field, like quantum entanglement, you can be 1 trillion light years away from me. If we're entangled, what happens to me happens to you, regardless of time and space. Distance doesn't matter. So talking about the nuclear bomb is a form of scalar weaponry. Because although it creates a physical blast, it also creates a scalar burst. That scalar burst is interdimensional. What happens here on planet Earth on the level of the scalar field, on the quantum level, can impact something 100 trillion light years away.
Dang.
When he explained that, the light bulb went up in my head, and I'm like, okay, that's probably why they're able to come and interfere with what they're doing here with our nuclear weapons, because it's interfering with what they're doing over there, regardless of time and space. So that was one of the big things that I got from him. And it shows you can use scalar energy in a beautiful way, and you can use scalar energy and weaponize it. You can use nuclear energy in a beautiful way,
Yeah.
and you can use nuclear energy in a weapon way. It's all a matter of the intentions behind the individual, but he's a beast at what he does. I have a lot of admiration for the man, and
Yeah.
it's been an honor to even work with him in that way, to be able to interview somebody like that.
Incredible. Wow. So those nuclear bombs we dropped 80 years ago must have did something.
It's not just 80 years ago. We've done testing with over 2,000 of them
Damn.
over the past 70 years.
Holy crap.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
2,000 nuclear bombs have gone off on this planet over the past, I think, 40 or 50 years alone. That's a lot of testing with a lot of radiation and a lot of messing with a planet and a universe that's not to be messed with in that way. We're messing with forces that we don't understand. Because if you think of the nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb, it's E equals mc squared, what Einstein came up with. And it's saying that a small amount of energy can produce an enormous amount of matter. And a small amount of matter can produce an enormous amount of energy. That's what it's talking about.
Right.
You're taking something that you can't even see, an atom, and you're doing something to it that can take out an entire city. That shows you that free energy is a real thing. The atom is not something that somebody created. It's a force that already exists here naturally in nature. It's literally the epitome of free energy, only weaponized to kill people.
Jeez.
Imagine using that understanding for, instead of creating bombs, creating free energy for the world.
Right.
The problem is there are certain people that would lose trillions of dollars in the process, and they will not let that happen very easily.
And you saw what happened to Tesla.
Oh yeah.
Well, you're taking a brave step in this space, man, because Big Pharma's probably not happy.
I don't want to live in a world that operates in the way that it operates today, and if that means that my life is on the line to do it, I'm okay with it. At least I know that I died trying to do something good instead of just sat there and bought and sold buildings the way that my family does. I love them. It's not my calling. And I just can't live in a world where there's so much suffering and I'm okay. I'm not okay.
Wow.
It doesn't make me happy.
I feel that. You also interviewed RFK.
Yeah. We actually interviewed him with this.
Yeah?
This was in the background.
What did he think about it?
So he actually has one now.
No way.
He's putting it together himself in his home right now. He's barely home because of the whole presidential campaign.
Yeah.
But he's very open to it. He's very open to it. He asked for studies. He's looking into the research. His team is doing the same thing. And he's just a very interesting man to begin with because of what he stands for. The fact that he's even able to be on the podium that he's on and nobody stopped him, if you know what I mean, is it takes a lot of balls to do something like that. And he's doing it. So I have a lot of respect for him. He's doing incredible work, and I wish him all the best in his endeavors.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. He's made a run.
Oh, yeah.
Farthest an independent has ever gotten, I'd say.
Yeah.
I love that.
Big time.
Also, Tony Robbins, man. What was he like?
Tony Robbins, I would say, was probably our largest endorsement when it comes to the Energy Enhancement System, technology, and unified healing as a whole. He had this in his home to begin with, and he didn't even know what he had in his home.
Wow.
Until one of his buddies, Dan, and Tony and Dan are opening a center in Vegas right here, I
Dan
think next
Fleischman?
month. No, Dan Holtz.
Okay.
He's an amazing, amazing guy. And him and Tony are really good friends. They're opening a center here in Vegas together. I think it's opening in a month or two.
Nice.
And basically what happened over there is Dan had his own experiences. He remembered that Tony had this in his home. And he called Tony and he's like, dude, do you know what you have in your home? He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Tony got this technology years ago and it was in his massage room and he didn't even really know what to do with it. Then one day, one thing led to another, few dots connected. And then I got a call one day and he's like, hey, I want to move forward. I'm really interested in this technology. He was in touch with the EE system team. So he got the technology. He got 2 massive 24-unit systems, one for his office, one for his bedroom and his home. And he was nice enough to allow me to go to his home and interview him and allow him to share his experiences on camera, which was a huge boost for everybody around the world.
Yeah, that's big time, man.
Yeah.
I also saw on your Instagram, you shut your phone off for 30 days and isolated yourself. What was the reasoning for that?
That was the turning point of my life. That's when it was on my 21st birthday. I did the opposite of what everybody else does when they're 21. They all go party and do all that stuff. And I didn't just shut off my phone for 30 days. I was fasting for 30 days. So I was completely just like Buddha mode for 30 days. And I'm like, I want to try this. I don't know when I'll have the time to do this again. I figured if there's any time to do it, it's going to be now. And from that moment, I don't even know, I've never done a fast before then. My first fast was a month.
Build-up.
Yeah, I just went for it.
Wow.
And it was crazy. And a lot of people, they're like, dude, you are crazy for doing this. And there were a lot of people that looked at me, they're like, you look way too skinny right now at the time. And I'm like, I feel good. I feel good. But it really, I would say, strengthened me to move on to this path. It gave me a lot of energy over that month that I would say is still being spent today. It was like potential energy building up that turns into kinetic energy. And I'm still using that energy today, years later.
Wow.
And I plan to do it again. I just need to find the time to be able to do that again with everything that's going on. Because ultimately, I think, especially with a network like Unified Healing, it is a reflection of the individuals who are running it. And that's a big responsibility on my shoulders. Because if I'm not in the best place that I can potentially be or possibly be emotionally, spiritually, physically, whatever it is, that will be reflected in anything that I'm a part of creating. So for the greater good of what we're trying to do, it's very important that I'm in that position of mental clarity so I can keep creating in a positive way. And that's why I want to do it again.
I love it. I want to get into fasting too, but I'm already so skinny. I'm scared.
It's not so much about weight. It's more so about clarity. Now, you don't even have to put numbers on it or days on it. Do however much you feel. Start with a juice fast. I wouldn't go to water right away. And see where it goes, and just feel your body out. Instead of the ego saying you got to do, 4 days or 7 days. Just do what you feel yourself. Definitely don't do interviews when you're on those days.
Yeah.
Take a second to relax, tune in, write, read, sleep, and see where it takes you. You can only bring it to a beautiful place.
I love that. So on your YouTube, there's an interesting video. Someone from an organized undercover organization that has been helping humanity approached you.
We're going there.
We're going there.
Okay. They're the reason why Unified Healing exists. They're the reason why EES System saw its expansion that it's seen over the past 2 years. I'll spare you all the details because it's a long story, but long story short, and I'll ask you the question. Do you believe that there are individuals with negative intentions in the world today that are doing things for their own self-interest instead of serving others? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Would it be plausible to assume, logically speaking, that the opposite exists as well?
Yeah.
But we don't know about the opposite by name. You could probably name a lot of the negative ones.
Right.
It's very hard to name the positive ones. It doesn't mean they don't exist. So I work for one of the positive ones. They approached me back in 2018. 2020, it became more formal. 2022, they sent me to the inventor of this technology, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. And they actually went to her 11 years earlier and said there will come a time where we help bring this all around the world very fast. 11 and a half years later, they sent me to Las Vegas. I did the interview. That interview came out on May 27th, 2022. That weekend after the interview came out, the EES system team received like 70,000 emails. Everybody around the world was ready to get started. They heard the call to action. They said, let's do this thing. And I would give probably 95% of the credit of what happened that day and throughout the interview to TLS.
Wow.
That's the name of the organization. They stand for Light System. It's a physical organization. They have offices, they have headquarters, they have chapters all around the world. And I happen to work with those individuals. And one of their, if you want to call it tasks or instructions, was find a way to get this technology out to the entire world, make it affordable and accessible to everybody around the world. So that's what we did.
Incredible. I love that. They also gave you a text that revealed the history of Earth.
I would say the history more so of the pyramids. That ties to Robert Edward Grant, big time. And Robert actually had an experience with one of the individuals in Egypt back in December. That is a whole other story that we don't need to get into right now, but it's very connected to Robert's work and what he's doing in Egypt, connected to ancient Egypt. That document that you're talking about is called the Pyramid Code. And the Pyramid Code focuses on everything that happened in ancient Egypt, how the pyramids were built, why they were built, the technologies used back then, things like electromagnetic pulsation, electromagnetic laser pulsation. They had those technologies back then to do what they did. And more so how that technology is being used in a negative way today by certain individuals in power. But the real purpose of that document, to my understanding, is to activate people spiritually. And millions of people around the world read it, and so many people got a lot from it around the world.
Wow. I didn't know that technology was still around.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I don't know what happened.
No. So electromagnetic pulsation is very much around. Electromagnetic laser pulsation is also very much around, but it's more in like military hands. The level that they had 3,000 years ago was much higher than the military has today.
Because of the consciousness level?
Because of many different reasons. Partly, that technology, from what I was taught, does not come from here. Most things don't come from this planet. There's a lot of things that come from...
Billy Carson told me.
Really?
Yeah. That's
I
not
didn't
from
know
here.
that. Billy's a great guy. He has a lot of knowledge.
Absolutely.
But it's being able to understand, even using logic, forget about trusting what somebody says. Look at the diversity on this planet. You really think we started from one amoeba that somehow, split and became all these other things, and here we are sitting? It makes a little bit more sense to me that we're probably the offspring of different races. That's why you have Asians and blacks and whites and all these different things. You cannot go from a black person to an Asian. It's two different things. You can't evolve from one to the other and have both alive simultaneously.
Right.
It just doesn't work like that. It makes a lot more sense, just logically to me, seeing what they've written on those hieroglyphics on the walls. They literally painted it for us thousands of years ago, showing different races coming together and creating a different offspring. Now, I'm not a religious person, but the Bible says it also. It says the sons of God came down from the heavens and mated with the daughters of man. Well, that means that there would be a differentiation in races between the daughters of man and the sons of God. Forget about what they are, right? Maybe the sons of God was just a way of looking at different races that were more advanced, right? We're all sons of God if you want to get to it. We're all daughters and sons of this creator of God, whatever you want to call that. But ultimately, our scriptures, our hieroglyphics, our everything shows us that evolution did not happen the way that we believe evolution happened.
I was never a believer in it, and they teach you all this stuff in history class, just like it's facts and you don't question it. But when you look back at what they taught us, who knows how much of it actually happened?
I remember my biology teacher told me I came from a whale. I'm like, how? He said, because if you look at the whale's fin, it has the same thing as your hands. I'm like, well, a tree looks like my lungs. So it's because everything is a reflection of everything else, not because I'm the whale.
Right.
Two different things. Everything comes from the same source, but I think we've become arrogant in modern day. We think we know it all. That's why we're so sick around the world today, because we think we're smarter than the body.
Wow.
You see, this is not an intervention with the body. This is a supporting factor to the body's already divine and intelligent mechanism. That's the way that we need to move forward if we want to see a healthy world. Trust the divine intelligence of the body. It knows what it's doing. It won't do anything to hurt itself. Support it and be a facilitator for its health and wellness along the way.
Love it. Jason, where can people find you and learn more about this stuff?
If anybody wants to learn about this technology specifically, I would go to eesystem.com. If you want to find a center on that network, it would be unifiedhealing.com. And there's like a standardized sort of network of centers around the world that we built all around the world, over 50 countries around the world. And again, when it comes to research and all that, I always tell everybody, don't believe a word that comes out of my mouth. Go look at the research for yourself. The research is on eesystem.com. The testimonials are on unifiedhealing.com. Between those two websites, you'll be able to find all the magic that you can find and understand. And from there, I would always say, go and experience it yourself, even if you're skeptical, because I was as well. But I've seen what it did to my family. That's the reason why I'm sitting in this chair today.
Love it. We'll link it all below. Thanks so much for coming on. I think you're changing the world, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for watching, guys. See you tomorrow.